week that I thought, whoa, I got to talk to Dean about this. This you published over at MSNBC.com. It's titled, Opinion Polls Reveal the Real Reason Ron DeSantis is Fighting the Teaching of Black History. What is that real reason?
It's absolutely, if you track it, and DeSantis knows the base, like Trump. In the last 20 years, you've seen an increasing hostility among the GOP base to teaching any Black history, not advanced placement Black history, any Black history, folks. That's what's going on in the GOP. And I cite there was a poll from 2000. They asked Democrats and Republicans, is too much Black history being taught in school? The answer was almost the same. Almost no one said there was too much. Flash forward 2018, you're at 40% of Republicans saying too much Black history is being taught. That's 5 years ago. You go forward, I think now easily you get to a majority of Republicans saying, I don't want any Black history. So that's critical race theory. Banning that is an 80% support among the GOP, because to them, critical race theory is teaching about not just history of racism, but how it plays today's world. And they feel uncomfortable about it. And there's a flip side, Tom, that I talk about digging even deeper. If you look at the GOP base in the last 20 years, they've went from saying racism against Black people is the worst racism in America to a poll last year of Trump supporters, 75% of Trump supporters. Are you ready for this, folks? 75% of Trump supporters think white people are just as big of a victim of racism as people of color. So now it is white victimhood to the point of they are the real victims when it comes to racism. So why are you teaching about Black history and Black suffering when we should be teaching about white suffering? And that's where we're heading. And just yesterday, Ron DeSantis in Florida talked about mandatory teaching of Western civilization. We know that's code for white nationalism, folks. We know that's code for white culture. Steve King, the Republican congressman, the former one, who was banned from his committees and he's out now, talk about what's wrong with saying white supremacy or Western civilization. We all get it. We know what Ron DeSantis is doing. He's playing to the white nationalist core of the MAGA base, which again, it looks about 60% of the GOP seems to be true white nationalists, and the rest white nationalists friendly or okay with it, or they would leave the party if they weren't.
You know, the Republican Party and, you know, America in general kind of danced with this tiger, this danger for years and years, but kind of off to the side. You know, Nixon's Southern strategy, Reagan's Southern strategy, George W. Bush's anti-Muslim rhetoric. Now it has gone from being peripheral to the GOP. The Democrats have largely completely rejected it, but it's become peripheral to the GOP. It's gone from being peripheral to being essentially at the core. I don't know of any issue that Republican politicians across the nation are more upset about right now. Well, maybe anti-gay hate as well, you know, and Michelangelo, Signorelli does such a good job of talking about this on the program that follows this one on Sirius XM. But this seems like it is now full-blown in our face in America. Countries that have dealt with this in the past, I mean, Germany went through a horrible experience with this. They had to learn their lesson the hard way. How do we pull back from this? Are there any lessons of history or lessons of other countries that we can learn from?
I think abject victory, to put it in a nice way. We have to defeat them. We have to defeat the GOP fascist forces. History tells you with fascists, you're really confronted with a couple of options. One is surrender, or two, fight back. I guess the third is flee the country. Right. But of the two, really, that if you're going to stay here, and I hope we are, it's either surrender or fight. And I choose that we fight, that we stand up together, we fight back against their bigotry. And the first thing is raising awareness about how dangerous it is to ban books. And you mentioned the Nazis. I went through it on my show various times. The history of book banning in Germany, Nazi Germany, that turned into book burning, which then turned into Nazis going to people's homes and taking books out of them and like destroying their homes and physically assaulting them while taking their books. We are not far from that. Florida has banned the second most books in the country, and Ron DeSantis is gleeful. He was down in Manatee County yesterday, and that's the county where teachers are hiding their books because they're feared being charged with a felony. This is America 2023. You could be charged with a third-degree felony in Florida if you bring a book to school that deals with race or the LGBTQ world, and it's not approved by Ron DeSantis' censors. How could this be happening? And if you ever wonder how in a democracy you can lose your freedom without a shot being fired, you're seeing it with Ron DeSantis. And I call Florida DeSantis Stan. He's turned this into a world where he says freedom when it's it's like dystopian, like 1984 George Orwell. It's the opposite of freedom.
Yeah.
And that's what he's about. So we have to be very weary of him. He's very dangerous.
Amen. The Dean of Radio, Dean Obeidallah. His Substack is The Dean's Report at Substack.com. And, of course, deanofradio.com as well. Dean, thanks for dropping by. It's always great talking to you.